Good evening and welcome to the 13th Annual Gala of the Tennessee Aviation Hall of Fame, where we award people and recognize people for doing outstanding things in the world of aviation. Our next inductee is Melton A., or as most of us know him, Mike Dover. So Mike, if you'd come up.
Melton Mike A. Dover, Dixon, Tennessee. Mike Dover successfully transitioned from a distinguished career as a wartime Army helicopter pilot to the Tennessee Highway Patrol Tactical Helicopter Squadron, responsible for statewide airborne law enforcement and air medevac programs. From 1960 to 1972, Dover served 2 tours in Vietnam, earning the Silver Star, the Bronze Star with V device with 1 oak leaf cluster, the Purple Heart, the Distinguished Flying Cross with 1 oak leaf cluster, the Army Commendation Medal, the Army Aviation Badge, 17 Air Medals, the Vietnam Gallantry Cross with Silver Star, and the Combat Infantry Badge. While a military helicopter pilot, Dover envisioned a civilian application of the Army's Tiki Mast program, using helicopters to evacuate the wounded to medical care facilities. He dreamed of establishing a similar program in Tennessee. When he returned home and entered training at Tennessee's Law Enforcement Training Academy, his vision gained the support of Governor Winfield Dunn, and Mike was assigned to the aviation section of the Tennessee Highway Patrol, the first organization of its type to use helicopters in law enforcement. Dover's efforts resulted in certification of Huey helicopters for emergency medical transportation. He developed search and rescue plans, trained personnel in emergency medical evacuations, and trained the THP's tactical squad to perform rescues, SWAT assaults, and rappelling. In 1977, Dover was instrumental in setting up Governor Lamar Alexander's Task Force on Marijuana Eradication, a program still in place today. Medevac operation was put to the test at the 1982 World's Fair in Knoxville. Anticipating ground traffic issues, Dover helped establish an airborne medical transportation plan. He was also instrumental in establishing medical helicopter operations at the University of Tennessee, the city of Chattanooga, and at Vanderbilt Hospital. During his 37 years in law enforcement, Mike Dover flew over every county in Tennessee many times, logging over 19,000 hours. Captain Dover retired from the Tennessee Highway Patrol in 2004, but continues to work with local sheriff's departments as a consultant. Captain Dover is currently flying for the Perry County, Tennessee Sheriff's Office, conducting search and rescue, drug interdiction, and aerial search for fleeing suspects and escapees in the 5 counties surrounding Perry County. For extraordinary service and enduring contributions to aviation for Tennessee, our nation, and the world, and for his service to our country, Melton Mike A. Dover is honored by and inducted into the Tennessee Aviation Hall of Fame this first day of November, 2014.
Everybody, Mr. Mike Dover. Now, I think the plan is for his wife, Sherry, to come and hang this around his neck. If you'll come right over here where the photographer can see you. Better, yeah, right here. Oh, yeah, okay. I got you. I got you.
Where do you want me?
Just kind of right here. Here, why don't you stand right here and put it where the photographer can, where the photographer can see this better. Big hand, everybody. Now Mike will have some comments. We'll say, I don't know whether he knows me or not, but I saw him come in and out of Lewisburg a lot over the years, and it's really well done.
Thank you. I can tell all of you, I certainly did not believe I'd ever be here. It's a great honor. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to all my friends and family that are here. It's a very special day for me, something I never dreamed of. I want to just talk by thanking everyone here that had any input into this great honor for me. There was two people that I worked with very closely that helped out in everything that was associated with this appointment. Mr. John Black and Lois Valance. I really appreciate what they've done, and by the way, John, Lois needs a raise. There are some very special people here that I want to mention just briefly, and I'll talk about in turn. One of them is my former commander in Vietnam. Ron Richmeyer and his wife are here. Commissioner Denny King, who was the commissioner of the Department of Safety and later became the United States Marshal for the Middle Tennessee District. One of the photographs you would see with a Huey helicopter doing a rescue over a river, flooded river. Denny King was that person doing the rescue. Colonel Charles Danner is here. Colonel Danner hired me on to the Highway Patrol, gave me the opportunity to live a dream. And Charles Gaddis, that's sitting with Colonel Danner, we were partners on the Tennessee Highway Patrol Tactical Squad. Other than a few nasty phone calls he'd make me in the middle of the night, we got along pretty well. Dan Edwards, who now works for the VA, his father was a captain on the Highway Patrol. He is a very special person. We'll talk more about him later. Don Earl is with the Alcoholic Beverage Commission. He and I actually worked together to start the governor's task force on marijuana. And my boss now, Sheriff Tommy Hickerson, and my work crew, everyone that works at the Perry County Sheriff's Department, they're all here. Mr. Mentor and Mr. Black, I appreciate this opportunity. And thank all of you for sharing this special night. There are 4 special events that brought this night about. First, I was fortunate to receive a field commission in Vietnam, my first tour. That gave me the opportunity to go to flight school. And going to flight school had always been my dream. I never thought it would ever come about, but it did, and I'm grateful for it. The second event was meeting Representative Mary Anderson from Rutherford County in 1971. I came back from California. I was stationed there at the time when this program, a federal program, was providing funds and helicopters and crew to establish a medical evacuation program for the states that would accept the responsibility after the initial grant was over. Mary Anderson presented that plan to the state legislature. During that time, we had many meetings with the Transportation Committee and other members of the governor's staff, and at that time, the commissioner of the Department of Safety, Claude Armour, and his assistant, who is Colonel Danner, who is here now. This program was not adopted because the state legislature would not approve the funds to pay the salaries of the crew that would have to fly. The University of Maryland and the Maryland Department of Safety are working that same program today. They were the first one to develop the program, and they are currently flying that same program today. After the decision was made to not fund the program, Commissioner Armour asked me to join the Highway Patrol and fly for them. So I agreed that that's what I would do. I happened to be away in summer camp flying for the National Guard when the first interview was decided I needed to come in for interview. I couldn't make it because I was in the process of flying for the Highway Patrol and National Guard also. Anyway, another interview time was set. I came back for that interview. There was a major who was a former pilot for the Highway Patrol, a captain, our personnel officer, and a sergeant that worked in the commissioner's office. After the interview, the major, who was the leader of the interview board, told me that he didn't believe that I could take orders from sergeants and lieutenants, and he was not going to recommend I be hired. The sergeant followed me out into the hallway and said, "Don't leave." He took my file into Colonel Danner, and I went to work that Sunday and started flying right away. In 1975, we received some military surplus Huey helicopters. We put 3 of those in service, one of them for medical transport, the other one for VIP transport and search and rescue. And as the statement was made earlier, we started a program during the World's Fair that proved that aviation helicopters used to transport critically injured persons could bypass the stop signs and the red lights and the traffic and put people at the hospital within that golden hour. Dr. Lash had requested through our commissioner that the helicopter and myself be provided on a 24-hour basis, 7 days a week. Nurses were trained, paramedics were trained, and doctors, and in some cases, flew with me on that mission. Later on that year, in 75, 76, I met another man that's here tonight, Don Earl. Don was a team leader with the Alcoholic Beverage Commission, and we started searching marijuana fields throughout the state of Tennessee. We were so successful during that time that the press became involved, and funding was provided through the Department of Safety and the Alcoholic Beverage Commission. And then the governor, Alexander, at that time, started the program and assigned the TBI to that program as well. So federal funds were available for the cost of operation and for the overtime hours if the overtime was necessary. When we first started the program, the crew, Don and his men, they only had a car. They didn't have pickup trucks, four-wheel drives, or anything, no four-wheelers. So when we found these large plants and fields of marijuana, they would strap it on the back of their car and drive down the highways with the marijuana strapped over the hood of their car and the trunk of their car. You can imagine the looks they got. On one of those forays, we were in the mountain areas of Grundy County, Tennessee, which is south of here, down toward Chattanooga. I was directing the crew of 3 cars to a field through the backcountry roads and mountain roads, and it was logging roads, and they're taking cars now. These are small cars they're taking through this area. Pickup truck is coming the opposite direction, and Don, who was bringing up the rear, recognized the guy as one of the bad guys coming from the area. It's the first time in my career, haven't seen it since, I saw somebody put their car in reverse, chase down, and stop somebody going backwards. That was Don. Don, would you please stand? Just a little down the road from there, There was a family that was notorious for growing marijuana, and we happened to fly over and find it. This lady was 61 years old. She had a 63-year-old husband. The grandson was 9, I believe. Is that correct, Don? And their son. They were all in the field harvesting marijuana. Don and I couldn't stand it, so we landed the helicopter in an access road, and everybody that was in the field ran. Don was fortunate enough to chase the lady, 61-year-old lady. She outrun him across the mountains, and when she came back, Don came back, he was breathing so hard he couldn't hardly speak, and he was huffing and puffing, and he finally sat down on the porch and waited for the lady to come out and turn herself in. We go back a long ways, Don and I. People that would listen to us talking between car and the helicopter would think we hated each other. We talked so bad toward each other, but we were great friends. Thank you, Don, for coming. There's other stories I could tell, but not in this mixed company. In September of 1979, Nashville had a major flooding event. Mill Creek flooded. Mill Creek changed from a running stream to the raging Mississippi River, just within a short period of time. People were swept down that river. That photograph you saw with the Huey helicopter, that lady that was swept into that river was actually floating down the river at the time of rescue. If you've ever tried to hover a helicopter above a moving stream of water, you would understand what I'm going to tell you. But as the water is moving, so are you. You know, you got to stay with the same flow. But we were able to pluck that lady out of the water. She still writes a letter every now and then. And that's one of the things somebody asked me today earlier in an interview outside. Why do you do that, what you do? What makes you like flying? I like to save people's lives. That's what helicopters do. You know, it doesn't matter how bad you are, how sorry in life your station is. If somebody saves your life, you got another chance to be a better person. That's what we do in law enforcement. We try to save people's lives, put them on another foot, and bring them forward. Sheriff Tommy Hickerson is in the back, and George Ditford is here. Would you two stand? I could say this, the oldest one is Tommy, but that's not the case. It's George. Thank you. I first met Tommy Hickerson. I met George a long time ago. He was on the tactical squad, flew with me, but his primary duty was dog handling. And Tommy Hickerson at the time was the chief trainer of the K-9 teams at the prison system. So every time they would have an escape, they would call for the helicopter, and the dog team would go out, and the helicopter would keep the prisoners within a certain area so they couldn't run, and the dogs, using the air scent, would chase them down. So we became quite proficient at that. That was some 18 years ago, I believe. These two guys never, ever gave up. I'd be flying over and over and over and over and over. You guys through yet? No, stay where you are. So we just kept going. But they never gave up. I lost track of Tommy, and some 18 years later, I retire in 2004 from the Department of Safety. I ride my horses, I ride my motorcycle. Sherry and I travel. Then I sit on my porch and I'm watching the grass grow. I get a call from George Ditford, and he says, "Do you remember Tommy Hickerson?" Yes, I do. What happened to him? He's now the sheriff of Perry County, Tennessee, and he wants you to come down and fly the helicopter for him. How soon does he want me there? Tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. I went down at 10 o'clock the next morning. He swore me in that day, and I've been flying for him ever since. Tommy Hickerson, thank you very much. The third event, I was asked by Captain Ron Edwards to take the helicopter to a school in Williamson County and give a safety presentation to the children. I did that, and I met a young man. He was very intelligent, very enthusiastic about helicopters and everything involving law enforcement. I didn't realize meeting that young man that day would change my life as it has. Dan Edwards, where are you? Dan Edwards in the back. Thank you, Dan. Dan Edwards is the person who wrote this program for me. It brought Tennessee Aviation Hall of Fame and my name together. Thank you very much, Dan. You never know who you're going to meet and impress in your life. Every time we go to schools and talk to school kids, some of those kids may follow you and may take the lead, and some may not. But my father told me a long time ago, you make an impression on everybody you meet. Do your best to make it a good impression. You won't make good impressions to everybody. I don't. But make an impression on Dan was a turning point in my life. Thank you very much. Thank you for allowing me to enter this great thing. It's a wonderful organization. I'm looking forward to helping in any way I can. Thank you all.